We got so much audience response to the Sex and the City segment we did a couple of episodes back. And I've been hearing from you guys since that first episode of season 3 dropped on Thursday night. And this is why we're here, because we're all going to come together, get through it together. We're all thinking the same thing, trust me. We've also got some more real talk about fake people, plus a guest I'm really excited about. This guy wrote one of the funniest books I've ever read. Mike Albo is a New York City-based comedian and the co-author of the urban classic, The Underminer, or The Best Friend Who Casually Destroys Your Life. I think we've all had one, or two. We're going to talk complicated friendships, how to read people's true motivations, how to spot a predator in the wild, and when it's time to call time on a friendship. But first, this one's going out back. We're taking him out back. And he's getting what's coming to him. Bill Maher. Bill Maher. I have been dying to talk to you guys about this since I saw it. I saw it in real time, which is quite fitting, on his show on Friday night. So I am a regular viewer of Bill Maher's show on HBO, Real Time with Bill Maher. It usually airs most every Friday night live from LA. So it airs at 10 p.m. in New York and 7 p.m. in LA. I am a fan, but I am a qualified fan because I have some real issues with Bill. And namely, it goes to the way he treats women. Now, he's gotten a little bit better at hiding his contempt on the air, especially when he's got like a woman one-on-one, and it always depends who that woman is and her status and whatever. And I say this even though he is one of the lone voices on the left, and I don't even know if he identifies as a leftist or a progressive anymore. But he's always interesting, he's always challenging, and he's one of those very few voices, along with the late Christopher Hitchens, along with Ayaan Hirsi Ali, Salman Rushdie, Sam Harris, Richard Dawkins, to take real issue with what Islamic fundamentalists do to their women. And that's namely mutilate their genitalia, marry them off as small girls to adult men, cover them from head to toe in burqas, denying them their education, their sexual agency. If you're raped, you're probably going to get murdered by a member of your own family, a male family member, in what are called honor killings. And the right to speak or sing outside of the four walls of their own homes. And those voices, a passerby can't hear them either, okay? So now let's talk about what went down on Friday night on his show, where more often than not, he will have two male panelists. Before COVID, there used to be 3. Now it's down to 2. And more often than not, it's 2 guys he's talking to. And then when he does have a woman on, he will often roll his eyes in utter contempt at whatever point she might be trying to make. These are guests in your house. I would consider that a guest in my house. I wouldn't invite people on to roll my eyes at them or like smack the table, and smirk and talk down to them. There was a 2022 episode on a show a few years ago. He had a guest named Catherine Rampell. She was a WAPO op-ed columnist, and she was talking about restricted abortion, and Bill blew it off, saying, "It doesn't affect my life. I ain't getting anybody pregnant." No, he's not. Bill instead infamously dated a woman who goes by or went by the name Superhead. She was a lot younger, and her real name was Corinne Steffens. And when they broke up after 2 or 3 years of dating, I think it was on and off dating, she said this to Vibe magazine, and I quote, "Bill wants someone he can put down in an argument. Her quotes, her words, not mine, tell you how ghetto you are, how big your butt is, and that you're an idiot. That's why you never see him," she says, "with a white girl or an intellectual. I might as well have been a Muslim woman with my head wrapped, walking 10 paces behind my man." Interesting. Most recently, he's been photographed with Al Pacino's sugar baby, Noor Al-Fala, if I'm saying that correctly. Bill is 68, Noor is 30. And Bill, he was something infamously of an incel as a teenager and young man. He talks about this all the time on his show. I don't think he uses that word, but he talks about all the time, it's still with him, how girls and women wanted nothing to do with him in high school and college. He hasn't gotten over that. He was also a habitué at Hugh Hefner's Playboy Mansion, and there are no shortage of former playmates or girlfriends of Hefner's who have come forward, lo these many years, to say what a house of horrors that was. And not just the stuff they were forced to do sexually. You know, Bill would say I'm using the word forced, probably, like inappropriately, but you know, what do you want to call it? Coercion? We'll go with that, okay? And I'm not just talking, I'm talking like hygienically, because there were strangers in that house, all having group sex of all variety of just whatever, you know? So Bill gets on TV last Friday, and he decides that his closing monologue, he's going to, I guess he calls it his editorial, he's going to use the Diddy trial as, I guess, his Trojan horse to talk about women who are abused by their partners, women who are stuck in relationships with men that are violent. And he's here to tell us it's all our fault. It's all the fault of these women. If you are getting beaten up by your man, your husband, you know, it's your fault. If you don't leave after the first one, your fault, okay? We're gonna take this guy apart, okay? We are going to metaphorically savage him limb from limb, and we are going to leave his verbal carcass to be feasted upon by wild boars. Roll this clip, beginning.
Things have changed enough so that moving forward, the rule should be, if you're being abused, you gotta leave right away.
Okay, I'm just gonna say this. If it were that simple, if the women who typically get into abusive relationships have a lot of backstory and a lot of complicated emotional, psychological, maybe physical trauma, you know? And abusers can spot these women like that. So if it were that simple and there were just an algorithm, a simple equation that women could follow, you know, there would be no more women for men to beat the shit out. Okay, Bill? Moving on.
Now, I completely understand why in the past women often did not do that. I understand, as counterintuitive as it seems, why an abused woman would send complimentary texts or emails to her abuser after the abuse. In an era where women felt for good reason that OG predators like Bill Cosby and Harvey Weinstein would never be held accountable, why not at least get something out of it?
Okay, several issues, Bill. Number one, Bill Cosby's out of prison, okay? Harvey is appealing his guilty verdict in New York, okay? Why not get something out of it? During the initial Harvey trial here in New York, which I paid extremely diligent, close attention to, the prosecution was sure to call an expert in rape survivors, because a lot of these women had maintained very friendly relationships with Harvey. Some of them continued to have sex with him. And as she explained, as this expert witness explained, it is often a way that a survivor, especially a survivor who had a prior relationship with her rapist, tries to gain control and make sense out of what happened to her, because it's so traumatic that someone that you knew and trusted violated you in this way. So I think Bill is confusing like an old school casting couch. And again, if you want to tell me that Bill Maher hadn't heard a goddamn peep about Harvey Weinstein and what he was up to on the East Coast, the West Coast, internationally, I knew, okay? I knew. If I knew, he knew, okay? Let's move on.
In that scenario, it was not illogical for an abused woman to say, well, if I can't get justice for my pain, can I at least get a receipt, a coupon?
This is disgusting. This is disgusting. He's equating surviving a brutal beating. Like, look at what we just saw Cassie go through on that videotape. Sean Combs was trying to deny it until that video got published by CNN, and then he was up Schitt's Creek, okay? But, you know, it's definitely worth taking a beating and going limp on the floor to try to protect your lower organs, or having a man who hates women so much try to disfigure you by like marring your beauty by punching you in the face. I'd take a coupon for that, sure. Okay, let's hear more about how Bill has come to inform himself on this most consequential topic of domestic violence against women.
And I'm aware that it can be difficult to leave an abusive relationship. Most of what I watch on TV is the Lifetime channel.
That's just a straight up misogynistic joke. That is just a straight up misogynistic joke, because Lifetime's programming is geared towards women. And he says so blithely and confidently, I understand it can be difficult to leave. Do you, Bill? Because I don't think you know many lower income women who are yoked to their men by financial desperation, or whose only option would be to leave their minor children, their very small children, with an abuser. And they don't have the resources or the outlets that you do, or like the rich, famous women you would think would have, which we are gonna get to, okay? We're gonna get to, because Bill is gonna rue the fucking day he did this fucking monologue. Okay, next up, let's go.
But this should be society's new grand bargain. We take every accusation seriously, but don't tell me any more about your contemporaneous account that you said to two friends 10 years ago. Tell the police right away. Don't wait a decade. Don't journal about it. Don't turn it into a one-woman show. And most importantly, don't keep fucking him.
Okay, Bill, fuck you. Fuck you. I don't want to hear your contemporaneous accounts. We're all seeing play out in real time. Witnesses taking the stand, grown men who are twice the size of Sean Combs, say that they were terrified of him, that they knew he could have them killed, that he would threaten to have family members killed. So maybe there's a reason people didn't come forward right away. Maybe there's a reason when you've got women on the witness stand in downtown New York City saying they thought that Sean Combs had far too many fucking ties to the police in New York or LA or Miami, that there was no way they would even bother reporting it. We're talking about a systemic, institutionalized, fucked up system that has always been against women as far as this shit goes. So you can go fuck off with your edicts that you don't want to hear about contemporaneous reports from 10 fucking years ago. Fuck you. Now, here is Bill on why he's not victim shaming with this little piece here.
It's not victim shaming to expect women to have the agency to leave toxic relationships. Quite the contrary, to not expect that is infantilizing them. If Diddy walks free, it will be because his lawyers can point to an endless stream of texts from Cassie expressing what's often called enthusiastic consent to their sex life. If you're Me Tooing someone, it doesn't help your case if you texted him, "Me too. I just want it to be uncontrollable." If you want us to think you weren't always ready to freak off, don't write, "I'm always ready to freak off."
Okay, he knew. He looked at that audience member and was sort of like, I don't know that that's appropriate. And throughout the whole bit, the audience was largely silent. Like, they were like, I think that they were like, are we hearing what we think we're hearing? Are we hearing? So, again, as discussed, displayed, and understood by a jury in New York City that was composed of more men than women, a jury that convicted Harvey of this stuff, they heard very complicated, nuanced testimony. In the beginning of the relationship, maybe Cassie was into it. Okay, fine, who cares? That doesn't apply to the entirety of the relationship, where she's got images, there's video, of her being beaten. There are reports, there are witnesses, there are grown men who said, I had to stand there and watch this guy beat the shit out of her because he had people in that room who were threatening to kill me if I didn't just stand there and watch it. So it's not like a blanket, it's like, if that is the equivalent of saying, if a woman sleeps with a guy once, let's say someone has slept with Bill Maher once, and they go out on another date with him and they're like, you know what, I don't want to fuck you again. That doesn't give you the right, Bill Maher, to have sex with her again because she did it once. I mean, is this the kind of binary thinking, the kind of low-level intellectual energy you are bringing to one of the most fraught subjects that women are still fucking dealing with? Are you fucking kidding me? Next up, we're going to hear how the music industry is so highly sexualized that, of course, what was Sean Diddy Combs to do but abuse, allegedly, multiple women and men low these many years? Let's have Bill educate us.
And music is, to begin with, highly sexualized. Magic doesn't strike at the office. It strikes in the studio at 3 a.m. when you're high as a kite and horny as a youth minister and everyone is sexy as shit and you're working on a song called Slut Up My Goo Machine. Of course a freak-off breaks out.
Slut Up My Goo Machine. Bill, if I may, you need younger writers and you need more females in your writer's room. I don't know if there are the women who do work on his show can speak freely to Bill, but you need some women who can speak freely to you, Bill, because there is a difference. And, you know, we all get it. Rock and roll, Hollywood, we all get it. These are industries that are pushing the norms, and, you know, they're sort of, things go on among consenting adults that are whatever. Fine. We all get it. There's a difference between that and what Cassie endured, the beatings she endured. I will never forget in her legal complaint, I think that was the civil suit she brought against him, and it's coming up again in this criminal case against Diddy. He stomped her face in the back of an SUV, stomped her face with his feet. She was beaten so severely, she threw up. He made her get breast implants, and within 24 hours had her back in a plastic surgeon's office demanding that plastic surgeon remove them because he didn't like the way they fucking looked, and put new ones in. And the surgeon said, I'm sure, Mr. Holmes, sir, I can't do that. She needs to heal first. We cannot open this woman back up. And whatever Sean Holmes said in that office scared that doctor enough to do it. Okay? So we're not dealing with a guy who likes to throw some sex parties now and then, okay? Now, let's have Bill explain to us why we women should have been getting this memo all along, because we've got people in the culture to teach us and tell us what's what. Let's look at this.
But if we're going to have an honest conversation about abuse, we also have to have an honest conversation about what people are willing to do for stardom. If you want a #1 record on the chart so bad you'll take a #1 in the face, some of that is on you. And if you're doing it for love, well, come on. Oprah and Dr. Phil and every podcaster in the world have done a million shows by now about how abuse is not love and abusers don't change. If it happened once, there will be more of it.
So Oprah, we're going to get to Oprah on this very, very topic. We should know because Oprah told us. Oprah, who blamed us all for making her feel bad about being fat and having to lie about going on Ozempic. I'm not hearing any of that shit, okay? This is an extremely complicated issue that more than one extremely powerful, successful, famous woman of great means and resources has found herself in. The next example Bill gives us is that of the British singer FKA Twigs, who had dated the actor Shia LaBeouf and has filed suit against him for abuse in their relationship. And everybody knows in Hollywood, Shia LaBeouf allegedly, he's a handful. I believe he was arrested for assault in, I think, Sundance one year. I'd have to look that up. But anyway, listen to Bill on why FKA Twigs should, I guess in his estimation, take her fucking lumps. Pun intended.
But by her own account, she said the whole time I was with him, I could have bought myself a business flight plane ticket back to my 4-story townhouse in Hackney, London. Really? Then why am I reading about this? Then do that. Buy that plane ticket, even if you have to go coach. If you're literally being held captive, that's one thing. But if you're putting up with whatever, for love or for your career, then you need to have a little more honesty and accountability about that. Ike Turner was a psycho, just like Diddy. But in an era where there was no movement to help her, Tina Turner somehow got away. And she did it with 36 cents in her pocket and a mobile car.
Okay. To FKA Twigs, Bill, the reason she's saying that she still, with all of her money and her resources, didn't book that plane ticket is the very point. He had infected her mind. He had fucked her up psychologically. Women don't stay because they enjoy being treated like punching bags by men, okay? Excuses for men, I should say. They stay because their minds have been so fucked with, and they can't believe this is happening to them. That is the exact fucking point, and you are just way too smart to not understand this, to be so willfully ignorant. And we're gonna get to Tina Turner, by the way, who, you know, it's not like I hit her once and she was out the fucking door. It took her years, and she had kids with him, so fuck off.
Unleash your inner lion at Leo Vegas, part of MGM Resorts International.
Okay. Now, to my point. We are going to talk about very famous, wealthy, powerful women who have been brave and have been openly talking about their own experiences. You know, I will never forget anybody who was around when this happened. You know, Rihanna, she was like a supernova. She was such a star. She was so beautiful, and everything she put out was like a banger. And she gets with Chris Brown, and they go to the Grammys, and the next day we all went online, opened the paper, and we saw what Chris Brown did to Rihanna. And here she is talking to who Bill thinks should be teaching us about this complicated issue, Oprah fucking Winfrey, whose response is frankly less than stellar. Let's take a look at this.
In 2009, just days after Rihanna and her then boyfriend, pop star Chris Brown, were photographed seated next to each other smiling, this image was leaked to the public. In the early morning hours of February 8, 2009, Chris Brown and Rihanna left Clive Davis's annual pre-Grammy party. According to police reports, while driving home, the two got into a heated argument, which escalated into a vicious and violent attack.
First of all, fuck Oprah. I don't know if it was her legal team or not, but you could push back for calling that a fight that, quote, escalated. We all just saw Rihanna's face beaten to a pulp in that clip, okay? That's not a fair fight. You know, a man assaulting a woman like that, that's not a man, and that is a vicious assault. And Chris Brown, by the way, just got arrested again in England. He was stupid enough to go back because there was a warrant out for him for assaulting, I believe, a music manager in a nightclub. He broke a bottle over the guy's head. The guy fell to the floor, and then he started kicking and punching him. That's Chris Brown. That's a guy. Those guys do not fucking change. But okay, so Rihanna sits down with Oprah and talks about this, and listen very closely to how she talks about what happened to her and what she was thinking in the immediate minutes, hours, and days after that vicious assault on her.
But nobody could feel that more than me. I was hurt the most. Nobody felt what I felt. Like, so it was...
You hurt the most because it happened?
It happened to me. And it happened to me in front of the world. It was embarrassing, it was humiliating, it was hurtful. You know, it's not easy. I lost my best friend. Like, everything I knew switched in a night. And I couldn't control that. So I had to deal with that, and that's not easy for me to understand or interpret.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not easy to interpret on camera.
Mm-hmm.
Not with the world watching. So it's hard for me to even pay attention to my mind and figure things out, because now it became a circus, and I felt protective. Like, I felt like the only person they hate right now is him. It was a weird, confusing space to be in, because as angry as I was, as angry and hurt and betrayed, I just felt like he made that mistake because he needed help, and like, who's gonna help him? Nobody's gonna say he needs help. Everybody's gonna say he's a monster without looking at the source. And I was more concerned about him.
That is really powerful.
Okay, the takeaway, and we'll get into the whole thing because there's a lot there, but Rihanna, through tears, you can tell she's struggling to keep her composure, is admitting that despite what he did to her face and how brutally he beat her and how humiliated she was on the world stage, because now everybody knows she's in an abusive relationship and the guy did that to her, that she was concerned about him, that her number one concern was about him, and that people were going to think he is a monster, which in my opinion he is. He has not changed, he is a monster. And that she's worried that people aren't looking at the source of the behavior. And listen, women who have dated guys who are not great, and we've all been there, you know, when you're really in it, you're like, but he just doesn't understand why he's behaving this way. Trust me, they do, and if they don't even care, okay? And she's saying, she goes on to say, by the way, in that interview later, that she's still in love with him. She went back to him after that beating. She went back to him, and it was public. Everybody knew it because the paparazzi were following them everywhere. They couldn't believe it, right? But what Oprah has to say to that, to Rihanna saying, no, I was more focused on him than myself, than my own physical and emotional well-being and my safety. I was worried about him. Oprah says, that's really powerful. That's not the answer, Oprah. And so to Bill Maher, who thinks that we all got educated by Oprah Winfrey, I would like to disabuse you of that notion with that very clip. Now, we're going to go to Mariah Carey, who was asked about Rihanna in an interview around that time. And Mariah had very famously been in a marriage. She was discovered at a very tender age. She was like 19, 20. Tommy Mottola, a much older, very powerful music executive, signed her, and then he married her. I believe he left his wife and married Mariah Carey. And there were always whispers, you know, that things were really, really sick up. She was like kept upstate. She was a young girl at the height of her power, of her beauty, of her talent, and this guy was keeping her locked away in a big mansion in, like, I believe it was upstate New York, and there were always whispers that that was an abusive relationship. Listen to Mariah on Rihanna.
You know Rihanna?
Yes, I do.
What did you make of that story?
Oh. Yeah, yikes. I don't know. I think that, I can't imagine if I had been, like, I was very, as you know, sequestered when I first started out. And if I was just allowed to be, like, young and with a young boyfriend who's also a star, and, you know, you're working and you're both, I don't know what goes on, you know what I mean? So it's like, I wasn't really allowed out of the house.
I wasn't really allowed out of the house. For Mariah Carey to say that on national television took a lot of guts, because that guy, I believe, was a very, very dangerous guy. And when she finally got that divorce, it had the feeling of, like, again, it's just the feeling I got from all the reading I did about it, but that she basically kind of escaped with her life. She had to sing the kind of music that Tommy Mottola wanted her doing. She wanted to be young and cool and, like, running with the hip hop crowd and doing music that was, like, of the moment, not like torch songs, you know? So there were always rumors that that was an abusive relationship, and she is asked directly, and I think she had to sign the mother of all NDAs to get out of that, but you notice she never uses her ex-husband's name. But listen to her try to answer this question of, have you been abused like that?
Oh, you've never been abused like that, ever been hit by anyone. Anyone ever abused you?
Abuse has several categories.
You've been emotionally abused.
Emotionally, mentally.
Why is it hard to get out of it?
Well, it's scary. You know, I just think you get into a situation and you feel locked in. If your situation is similar to one of these situations I've been in, which I won't.
No, you don't have to, but it is hard to get out.
For me, to really get out, it was difficult because there was a connection that was not only a marriage, but a, you know, business thing where the person was in control of my life.
The person was in control of my life, okay? If you're not watching and you're only listening to this, I encourage you to go watch this section of the show in particular, because Mariah Carey, she's not having trouble articulating her thoughts. What you can see her being extremely careful in choosing her words so she doesn't incite a reaction or a major lawsuit from this extremely powerful man. So she can't even tell her own story about what happened to her. And she's saying right there, abuse takes many forms. Being locked in a house, and you can't have friends or family over, you can't go out, you can't live your life, you can't do what you want, you can't make the music you want, that's abuse, okay? Was he beating her? We don't know, but, you know, it doesn't sound great, okay? So then Mariah gets out, and she wants to be in with the hip hop crowd, she wants to be doing music that's, like, again, of the moment, and she makes this incredible album called Butterfly. You know, the title was meant to be evocative of her newfound freedom. You know, I don't think Mariah knows that much about butterflies. They only live 6 weeks. But that said, So look who helped Mariah out on her first record after extricating herself from this incredibly difficult, complicated, what she says was an abusive marriage to this record executive, Tommy Mottola. Look who helped her out. So what we're seeing here is the music video for Honey from 2015, and none other, I think he was going by P. Diddy back then, was all over this. He helped produce the record. He did a Bad Boy remix of the single. He was all over that video, you know, leering at her, rubbing up against her. You know, she went from one predator to another. And I'm sure at that time, Diddy posited himself to her as someone who was going to help her get her freedom. Okay, that industry is so fucking dirty. Hollywood's dirty. Bill Maher fucking knows that he can go fuck himself. I can't say it enough. On to our next one. Our next powerhouse of a female, Reese Witherspoon, who just sold her company, Hello Sunshine, for like $1 billion. Here she, again, with Oprah promoting Big Little Lies, which she produced and starred in. And at the heart of that story is it's not Reese, it's the Nicole Kidman character, a successful, gorgeous, wealthy woman, a wife and a mother, who is in a physically abusive marriage. And here's Reese on how every single woman who was working on that project had a fucking story. Listen to this.
It was incredible when we did Big Little Lies, how we would sit around all the women and talk about each one of us had very specific experiences. It was a range of experiences, but there wasn't a woman there that hadn't been affected by abuse. Not one of those women. And it's why we decided to make this show.
Yeah.
And I'm hard pressed to find any group of women where you can't say, it happened to my sister, it happened to my mom, and I saw this.
Yeah, Oprah, if she had something valuable to say in that conversation, I didn't see it either, okay? Charlize Theron, whose father was so physically abusive to her mother, and that's all we know.
You've just been transferred for the 4th time.
I love meeting new people. It says your package has arrived, but you can't find it. Ooh, a mystery.
You've now been on 50 years have gone by. We have a lot to be proud of from.
She's always been vague on the length of time. It sounds like it was her whole life, Charlize's. That one night when Charlize was still a teenager, her mother shot and killed her father. Her mother shot and killed Charlize's father, okay? So here she is on Drew Barrymore's show talking about the lasting scars of that extremely traumatic, abusive childhood.
I'm not so eager to jump into a relationship because I'm so proud of the fact that my kids live in a home where they feel safe and they feel like they're never going to have to walk on eggshells and they're never going to have to come down and worry about how their day is going to go because mom's boyfriend is not, you know, or I don't want any of that because that's how I was raised, and it's a horror. It leaves marks on you for sure.
By the way, do you remember when Charlize was dating Bill's really great friend, Sean Penn? That was back from like 2013 to 2015. I went and looked it up. And they were this very hot, unlikely couple. The tabloids were all over them. There were sources coming from her camp. You know, she's famously marriage averse. You can see why. Who were saying, you know, that she was so in love with Sean Penn that she might even marry him. She was considering it. And then Charlize ghosted him. She ghosted him. And she has never said why. But, you know, she had adopted a baby in 2012, the year before they got together. And then in August of 2015, the year that she ghosted him, she adopted another baby. And not for nothing, you know, Sean Penn, again, Bill's good friend, we talked about this in a different episode. He also reportedly tied up his then wife, Madonna, another powerhouse of a woman, and beat her and forced her to perform a sex act on him. And she escaped with her life, in my opinion. So, you know, Bill, you have zero authority here, zero right to speak about this. How many more do I have to go through for him to get the point? Pam Anderson, who was beaten by her then husband, Tommy Lee, while holding one of their small children. Listen to Pam.
What was the violence that actually happened there? Who hit who first?
I didn't hit him at all. I had holding Dylan, and he took Brandon and ran out the door with him. And I don't know. It was something I had to call 911. And then when he knew that I did that, then he smashed my head into the phone. It just got very ugly.
And here you have the father of your young son, who you're holding, kicking you, lashing out.
Yeah. I haven't thought about this in a long time, but yeah, it was bad.
You were very brutal in terms of reacting to what he did. This was like, no, I'm not having it. The police are coming, and you're going to get punished. And he was. He went to jail.
Well, I mean, I did it
6
because
months.
I really thought he was going to go further. I thought he was going to go further. I mean, I thought that he had no concept of who he was or what was going on, and I had 2 babies there, and I really thought he was going to, I don't know, he could have killed me. He had no idea. I mean, I never felt like I had to call 911 in my life.
So, Bill, to your question as to why women don't just call the fucking cops, Pam Anderson says it right there. She called 911, and Tommy bashed her head in once he realized she called the police. And I'm sorry, the way she's telling that story, it's like it never happened before. Violence like that does not come out of nowhere. I believe it had happened before. And what it does is it starts out low and then it escalates, so that by the time it's escalated, the woman has become so conditioned to her new normal. You know, there she is saying, I didn't think I would ever have to call 911 in my life. I thought he was going to kill me. And she's excusing him in that clip too. And I'm not blaming her, but this is what happens to women. They get so fucked in the head by these guys. She's saying he wasn't there. Like, she's basically saying that wasn't Tommy. You know, he was so out of it on drugs or whatever that he didn't know what he was doing. Well, he knew enough to realize that you called 911 and the police were on their way, and he was angry enough about that to beat the shit out of you. So he was conscious of what he was doing. I would say, not for nothing, Pam went back to him, okay? She has said they continue to have a relationship, and sometimes they would be intimate after that. You know, their 2 small children were involved, so it's fucking complicated, okay? Finally, the late, great Tina Turner. I could not love this woman more. I mean, what a story, what a talent, what an original, an American original. Now, Bill cites Tina Turner as the prime example of a woman who just, you know, she got hit by her husband, she stood up and said, no more, and leaves after the first strike, hit, punch. She's fucking out of there. Well, here's Tina. I pulled this clip in particular. The audio's a little soft, but bear with it because it's very nuanced. This was 1993. You know, she'd only recently come out with her story. You know, that when she came out with her story, people were shocked. The memoir she co-authored with Kurt Loder that turned into a movie called What's Love Got to Do with It? And people were shocked because she seemed so strong. So Ike Turner, her abusive ex-husband, was still alive at this time. And again, I would encourage you to watch this part of the show because you can see her, the great Tina Turner, like tentatively looking at the camera, like as if that's Ike, like watching from a corner of the room about to pounce on her. And you can hear the fear just under that like beautiful controlled voice that she's trying to modulate. Here's Tina Turner on 60 Minutes about life with Ike.
His beatings was savage.
Yes, and not just for me, for everyone involved.
As a kid, I saw him on television, and I'm amazed to read in some of those performances with him, you have blood in your mouth.
Yeah.
When you're singing.
It was the first time I experienced it when I had a nose problem, and I didn't know I'd never had a broken nose before. It was cracked there or something, and
From one of the beatings.
Yeah, this was one before a show, one of those things in the dressing room, and I don't know what to tell you. It became a way of life.
It became a way of life. It became a way of life. You know, Bill Maher owes women everywhere a huge fucking apology. And if he has any balls at all, he'll do it on his next show. Because what he just did, that message that he just put out there, he's got a lot of men who listen to him and take him seriously. And he just did a lot of damage in the culture. He just did a lot of damage to women and to our ever-growing understanding of domestic violence and the women who managed to survive it. A lot of women don't, Bill. A lot of women don't. Now, if you want to know what really gets Bill Maher, like what he's really concerned about, I couldn't help but remind you guys of this, because fucking eat it, Bill Maher. Around Christmas time, he had a huge hissy fit. Huge fucking hissy fit. CAA, the powerhouse agency, where he was repped for more than 2 decades, the super agent Brian Lord had a private Oscar party, and Bill did not get invited. Furious. He was so furious that he couldn't.
I agree with Maureen Callahan. And Bill Maher has 3 minutes to do his editorial. And in 3 minutes, he was saying exactly what I was thinking, in that after my last experience being a people pleaser, they find you and you have to be alert and aware. So I'll get a copyright on this. That's all I was trying to say, is with all the information out there, young ladies, we do have the agency for us to stop being abused as women and for men to stop being abused. It goes both ways.